Thank you very much indeed. It's an absolute delight to be here. There's a bit of an urban theme developing, which is quite cool. I didn't realise that was going to happen to this afternoon session. So I've been commissioned by Bloomsbury to write the next book in the British Wildlife Collection, which is all about urban plants and urban botany. My challenge is to squeeze 2 years of research and writing into 15 minutes. So this is going to be slightly whistle stop. So if you're just starting to drift off after lunch, this is your opportunity to wake up and have some fun. So, Untangling the Urban Jungle. Who's the best person to write a book on urban plants? Maybe somebody that's never lived in a city before. So this is where I live at the moment. This is the small holding that I inhabit in northwest Wales. I've always lived on farms in Hampshire, Wiltshire, Northamptonshire. I've never lived in a city, apart from small time in Bangor for my university days. But because of that, after all these years in the countryside, maybe I've got a little bit bored of the countryside, and I absolutely adore cities. I find them really exhilarating and really exciting. For me, this is where the fascination is. Where do all these plants come from? How have they arrived here? How are they spreading? How do they cope with these impossibly harsh conditions? This doesn't look impossibly harsh, but this was London a couple of years ago. I went around with Mark Spencer. It was 32 degrees in the shade, and I was wilting at the end of it. There are some really harsh conditions in the cities. And this just fires up my curiosity and asks all those questions about the plants that you find there. They're also deeply exciting. Even a little visit to the hairdresser can be deeply exciting when you nip into the car park next to the hairdressers and find something that you've never found before. Chris Preston quite rightly read through my manuscript and limited the number of times that I used the word exciting in the book. He said, no more than 15, Trevor. So I had to cut out exciting. But this really was exciting to get the fifth British record for this species and the first for Wales. It's a lovely little thing. Now, as I've mentioned, what fascinates me about urban habitats are the sort of origin and the creation of the urban flora. And that's really one of the main drivers of the start of the book. How does the urban flora form? And one of the main drivers of the urban flora, obviously, is the urban heat island. Note here, this is the one in London back in 2003, a heat wave. Note the granularity of the heat island here. And did you know, for example, so you can make out, if I get this right, this is Richmond Park and where are we up here? Hampstead Heath up at the top here. So Hampstead Heath there. These are actually urban cool islands. I didn't even know there were urban cool islands, but this is where the vegetation is obviously having an enormous impact on the actual plants in the immediate area. So what grows because of these things? Well, we're getting some amazing plants appearing in places like London now, and avocado has become established. This is a plant that's popped up from a discarded stone in Sparfields Park, and I'm really glad that Blue is looking after it so attentively. Mark assures me that the avocado arrived after Blue and not before. But Mark also, interestingly, he describes London now as a Mediterranean city. It is a Mediterranean city, and we get Mediterranean species popping up. So this is the wonderful Mediterranean nettle, which is appearing all over the countryside now. Now recorded from about 50 locations across Britain. All the way from Penzance High Street, all the way up to I'd love to visit B&Q for this reason. It's growing in B&Q car park in Elgin, up in Moray. So that's one good reason to visit B&Q. It's one of a small suite of plants that actually is getting imported and moved around by pots, particularly palms and olive trees that are coming into the country. And if any of you pop down to your local garden centre, it really is worth having a look in these pots and seeing what's coming up, because that's the start of things getting out and moving around. Now, we often think of trees as being the main contributor to ameliorating the urban heat island, but in fact, even the tiniest plants can have an effect. Here is the pavement in Santiago de Compostela, and the paving stones themselves, the slabs reach, yeah, that's a deadly 55 degrees centigrade. But they found with this little community of fascinating little plants there that they were 25 degrees lower. So multiply that across the whole surface of the pavement, and it can really have an effect on the urban heat island. Another main driver in cities is obviously pollution, and particularly sulfur dioxide. So the Great Smog in London, 1952, huge amount of SO2 released, and that was converted into 4,000 tons of sulfuric acid. That now has really dramatically decreased since the Clean Air Acts, 56 and 68. As it says there, emissions have declined by 98%, which is enormous. This has resulted in a deacidification of surfaces across cities to an enormous extent. And one of the main benefactors, I'm sure all of you have seen this gorgeous little thing, relief saxifrage, popping up in towns and cities across the country. And this is the change back in the just up to the end of the 1960s to its distribution now. It really has gone haywire in this lovely clean atmosphere. It's not only relief saxifrage, but also lots of ferns are coming back as well. A whole suite of ferns are now recolonizing places where they either grew before or new places that they can colonize, and indeed mosses as well. I do talk about bryophytes in the book. White tip bristle moss is one of the main ones that's rebounded across London. Now, urban habitats are so incredibly diverse, and this is one of the main drivers of plant diversity as well. This is just a quick list off the top of my head of all the different sorts and types of habitats that you get in urban settings. Initially, I said, yeah, I'll write about all of these in the book. It quickly became apparent that I'd have to write about 20 volumes to cover all of these. It'd be like writing a book of the botany of the countryside. So what I've done is focus on 5 different habitats and imagined a sort of walk through the streets, seeing what different habitats that you come across. So the first one of these is pavements. And I've become fascinated with plants like garden lobelia, a lovely little thing, which I'm sure you've all seen. It's absolutely impossible to know where these plants could have come from. Nobody could tell, especially when it's outside your favourite pub in Conway, which serves a very, very good local pint if you're ever in Conway. But the question for me is, really, are these plants now self-sustaining, or do they rely on continual reintroduction from the hanging baskets above? It's probably a little bit of both. But this species is probably one of those benefiting from the urban heat island, because it originally comes from South Africa, and so they're probably starting to benefit from the milder winters. The seed can survive and overwinter and germinate the next year. Diving into some of these non-native species, for me, is really fascinating. There's really good ecological reasons behind why they're doing well here. So this is, if you go to the floras of South Africa, of Southern Africa, it comes from periodically flooded grasslands, riverbanks, and rocky places. So places that dry out and then get flooded with water. Hanging baskets, pots full of plants. We're mimicking its habitat, and that's why it's doing so well here. There's also a whole load of culture and fascinating folklore around these plants that make them absolutely fascinating. To us, they're just bedding plants. They're just lobelia in a pot, but there's actually a lot more to them. Pavements are places where plants move around, and one of the things that really fascinates me are these dispersal kernels, how plants move around, how far they move. And sometimes they can be two-phase. So this is a lovely example with procumbent yellow sorrel. The first phase, those pods explode, can fling the seeds 5 meters away. Second phase, those seeds are sticky. They get stuck on us, on animals, on plants, and get moved around again. So that's enabled this thing to go mad as well. So that's only up to 1999, the map on the left, and then the one over here showing where it is today. So lots of other plants are moving around. It's not just these species. There's a whole host of grasses that are moving around, and sort of pavement rarities, things that were once rare in Britain, but now they've sort of been turbocharged and they're spreading all around the country. I'm sure you're familiar with lots of these other species as well. The pavements are fascinating. Walls are my favourite habitat. I love a wall. I love a nice urban cliff, as I call them. And I think we really should start using the term lithophyte a bit more. I love a lithophyte. And these, we talk about epiphytes. We go, oh, I love my epiphytes. I love my lithophytes. They're absolutely marvellous. Walls are fascinating because of the way the succession proceeds on walls. A German study looked at lots of modern houses with modern walls and found that over 220 species had been recorded, including a fascinating green algae. So this, this red stain that you often get on walls, and you might also see it in bird baths when they dry out. That's caused by a green algae, Haematococcus pluvialis, and that has cysts in it when they dry out that turn red with this astaphin. I knew I was going to get that wrong. Astaphin, which is a dye. Here's a fun fact for you down the pub that they use if you enjoy your salmon and your shrimps. They use this in the aquaculture industry. Feed it to salmon and shrimps to improve the red colour of their flesh. So that little algae is not only colouring our walls, but it's colouring our food as well. Wall cotoneasters, I love the idea of perch, preen, poop, and then fly off. So many of these plants come from birds perching on top of the walls. And a lovely little study there by Ron Payne on the Isle of Ely. 89% of cotoneasters were found on wall tops, and 71 of alders on wall tops were found on the tops walls. So there's all sorts of little bits of ecology that are going on with these urban cliffs. And indeed, obviously, we've got the master of the masonry, as I call it, our good friend, I believe, toadflax. Now, how many of you have heard of the pedicels of the plant when they've been once they've been pollinated, they turn around and head into the walls? How many of you have actually seen that? Just a handful of you. Go and have a look. I didn't believe it happened. Well, yeah, I believed it happened. I'd never seen it. Went out into the wall in my backyard, and there's the pedicel heading right back into a crack into the wall. So one of my aims of this book is to get people looking at these habitats and actually seeing what's there. Let's be curious about them and understand them. Also, lots of rare plants grow on walls as well. This is a lovely slide from Fred Ramsey. Thank you very much, Fred. This is your picture of green spleenwort, a Splenium viridi, which I know up in Cwmwydwl in Wales. Ravenscourt Park, a London Underground station, and Fred advises me you have to sit in the last carriage of the train to see it, but it's still there. Urban fallow is a next habitat. I've got to speed up, haven't I? Urban habitat. This is what I like to term waste ground, derelict land, and brownfield land. I prefer urban fallow as a title. It's often behind bars, so it can be really difficult to get at. Hirschfeldia incana is difficult when you're standing next to it, but if it's behind bars, it's even more difficult. And it's very transient. I'll pick that one away. Urban fallow, the star of urban fallow has to be good old Oxford ragwort, which has already been mentioned today. I look into the story of how it arose. I've never seen pictures of its parents before. These are the two parents on Etna that crossed to form this wonderful thing. And I've included this side, sorry to take a little bit more time, just because John was so disparaging about it this morning. There's Welsh groundsel for you in all its glorious beauty. I've been studying this plant last year. I love it. It's a very, very cute little thing. The grassy bits I look at, No Mow May has already been mentioned, this fantastic leaving things to flower. This is in Dorchester. Not everybody likes it though. So I examine in the book why people have these sort of reactions to it. I love the Llandudno one. Somebody said there are even zebras growing down in the, zebras grazing on the roundabout in Pentir Road, to which I replied, great, bring on the zebras. Let's have more zebras around. Urban orchids, absolutely fascinating for people. People really get into these. Lots of lizard orchid growing on verges throughout lots of towns and cities in Britain, but also this Serapius cortigula, a dull suburban lawn in Sheffield. It's been growing there since 2001, a No Mow May. No Mow May lawn. Nobody knows where it came from, but it just popped up and appeared there. And the contentious issue of wildflower meadows. Yeah, that's a meadow, isn't it? I actually take a much more conciliatory view of this. Meadow Nazi was being bandied around at one point on social media. So these issues really do dig deep. But I see these often as a transition towards more sustainable habitats that support a lot more wildlife. So here to them. And finally, I look at street trees, these lovely things. Plane and London plane and limes are probably the main species that get planted. But in fact, down here in London, there's nearly 900 different species of street tree that get planted around the streets. Some of these seed really enthusiastically. Swedish whitebeam and grey elder, probably you're familiar with seeing seedlings of those. Has anybody ever seen a seedling of maidenhair ginkgo, of maidenhair tree? Probably not, because you've seen some, have you? Blackheath. It's very rare for the females to get planted. Yeah, because the seeds themselves, the actual fruit, contain butyric acid, which is what is in our stomachs. So the fruit smell of sick when they're ripe. And posh people in their posh neighbourhoods who plant this sort of tree don't like them smelling of sick. So that's why it isn't around. Tree of Heaven's already been mentioned. I was astonished at how much Tree of Heaven is around in London when I came down there. I had a look around the streets with Mark, and there's a strange reaction towards Tree of Heaven. So people think that it's sort of part of a rewilding thing, I think, and they actually sort of embrace these things when they pop. You know, this must have been planted in front of this block of flats because you know, you wouldn't plant. It must be. It looks so lush and so tropical. It must be part of a sort of rewilding thing. So that's one of the reasons why that's so common. And another tree that's really spreading quickly down here, if you know it, is foxglove tree, Paulonia. Grown for its massive leaves, really fast rate of growth. There are seedlings everywhere on the pavements around here in central London. Now, of course, this constant flux is what's really interesting in urban botany. There's a small suite of plants that I look at that are sort of our constant companions through our urban lives, but a whole suite of species come and go and move around. I had to include a picture of Dublin docks. This was research done for the book, which was also a stag do over in Dublin. So I'll brush over that one quite quickly. And I just wanted, it's Tristan here. Haven't said, hi Tristan, good to meet you. So this is Tristan Norton's discovery from Southampton docks this last September. A new species that's arrived with no idea. Tristan, I don't think you haven't identified what it is yet. We don't know what it is yet. An American cudweed, new, probably almost certainly new to Britain. Keep an eye out for confirmation if you can ever work out what it is. But that's beautiful for a cudweed. I'd like that around on my neighbourhood. Is this going to spread around? Is this going to be the next thing that moves around our cities? We don't know. But I'd welcome all these species to the Urban Plant Party. So the book is at its proofreading stage. You can order it already on the Bloomsbury Wildlife website, but I think there'll be a BSBI offer which will be available to members. And yeah, I hope you enjoy it. And I hope it stimulates a bit more interest and a bit more curiosity in our urban flora. Certainly, I've been transformed by writing this book, I must say. Thank you very much. Thank you.
That was absolutely brilliant. We've only got time maybe for one very quick question, if there's any quick questions. We have got to grab. Ooh, gentleman there.
Hand up first.
Would you like a microphone first? No? Okay.
What? Yeah.
Now, major issue in cities now is the nitrogen oxide.
I had to take that slide out. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. I think nitrogen levels are really, really high at the moment, and that is having the second most biggest impact on our urban flora. So we're seeing vascular plants change because of that, nitrogen demanding plants, but particularly the bryophyte flora has changed on trees and on to a lesser extent walls on beside roadsides. Huge amount of vehicle emissions deposited on the roadside, so that's having a major driver of change. And you're right, I think that switch to electric is going to have a big impact on that. This is just part of that story of change in the urban environment, and I think the important thing, as I should have said at the end there, is that we keep recording these things and keep noticing these things so that we can map these changes, because back in the 50s, nobody would have imagined that sulfur dioxide would have declined to that extent. Gilbert described Sheffield as a bryophyte desert back in the now you can go in there and there are bryophytes all over the place. So these things do change, and it's that flux that's really interesting. Yeah. Great. Thank you very much.
Okay, be quick.
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Great. Grab me out. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much. That was really, really good. So yeah, get your pre-orders in for Trevor's book next year. That looks fantastic. Right, that basically brings us to the end of this second session. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for all our fantastic speakers. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. We now have a 1 hour break for you so that you can carry on enjoying the exhibits, go for a coffee, chill, whatever you want to do. If you have signed up for the herbarium second tour or the advanced herbarium workshop, you need to wait by the BSBI stand, and Nicola there will guide you. And then back here for 3:30 for the final talk session of the day. Thank you very much.